agreeing to come on the show, spending some time on, of course, which I'm sure is a busy week for you. And thank you once again for agreeing to have a chat with us. I hope everything has been going on well with you.
Absolutely, completely. I mean, there are things that, of course, have been affected, but I think these are the best times to explore personally and even look at the things while sitting back from a distance at what has been happening. So, yeah, it's fantastic.
Super, super. So, like I mentioned earlier, I want to understand the impact of COVID on businesses, on job profiles, and in the way brands are now engaging and connecting with their consumers. So, I'm going to be asking you a few questions around that. And I want to begin with the most basic question right now, which I am asking every marketer today. How has COVID-19 impacted you as a professional and, of course, the industry that you operate in?
Right, absolutely. So, first thing, personally, I don't think it has had an impact. In fact, I see this as an opportunity. I feel that a lot of things that my competitors, probably who were ahead of me, they are not doing, and this is the time when I can cover up that gap. I think since the invention of cereal, maybe Second World War, this is the one of the biggest business opportunity. But coming back to your second question, second part of it, what is happening in your industry, which is marketing and advertising in my case, I think it's pretty bad overall if I have to look at it, because everyone out there is, the first thing that you cut is marketing budget.
Yep.
I've been talking to entrepreneurs, they say that we are not doing that. However, on the flip side, there are certain businesses which are spending more. And this is a pattern that we are seeing. We are also trying to understand industry. So in our tool, we are kind of analyzing certain industry. Number one is OTT platforms. The second is Ed-tech. And we are seeing there is a tremendous increase in engagement. It points to two things. Number one, users are really online and they want to engage with these brands. The second is these brands are probably spending more than ever. And the opportunity right now for certain businesses, for instance, two of my clients actually doubled its budget, and one of them increased by 50%. And the reason why they did is because their business is suited for this environment. They're providing their services online. So while they are consumer-focused business, which are not able to spend and which cannot spend because ultimately no one is buying their product unless it is the essential services ambit. So I think it depends upon what industry you are in, so you can actually scale the budget. But I think there are agencies which aim to gain from this, and there are agencies which will suffer. So let's say, as an agency in a marketing and advertising, you were serving only e-commerce clients. Suddenly you are in trouble because e-commerce is not working anymore. And probably in the next few months, it might not be. So if your services were diverse, I think you will be pretty much safe, which in my case has happened, I think.
Super, super. I completely agree on a couple of points, and I have been chatting with a few folks from EdTech and OTT and gaming as well, for that matter. And they have certainly seen a massive take, and it's like the biggest period of growth for them, probably since inception. And it's all organic; it's purely organic. And in some cases, they have been happy that, of course, there is increased traffic, but they're also struggling to ensure that the customer experience does not get affected, everything remains intact, nothing gets broken. So few challenges on that side as well. But I also like the fact that you are talking about key challenges that are coming in place of in terms of delivery. And I completely understand, because of the fact that the impact of COVID on marketing has been really brutal with respect to funding and budgets. Right, budgets have started to uh, 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 reduce drastically. The earlier brands were operating with a really massive budget, right? And now everybody's uh, concerned, and the first thing to go away is, of course, the marketing budget. Now, in your case, what changes have you noticed with respect to the marketing strategy for consumer brands?
Right, absolutely. So I think this is a topic that we were toying with some of my clients and even internally in the team. So number one thing that we noticed is when you're doing advertising, you had to be very subtle and very cautious. You cannot go out to your customers and say, I have 50% off, buy, because that sounds very empathetic, I would say. Uh, Even if you're not a consumer brand, I think as long as you're going to customer and you're not asking him, hey, what's the biggest problem that you're facing and how can I solve it? I don't think you are building that connection. So one thing that uh, any advertiser or marketer risk right now is losing that connection. A lot of I would say clothing and apparel brands, they're also facing this issue. They don't know how to communicate in this environment. You cannot just go and say we are in this together. No one would believe you, right? No one would believe
Sure.
you that,
Sure.
right? So I think there are brands which try to do that. There was, I think Priyanka Chopra is an association with Crocs, and they try to do something like this by giving 10,000 pair of shoes for the medical professionals. I don't think it went down well with the audience. So when you are going with your marketing communication messages, you have to be very subtle. You have to be empathetic, and I think you should let the customer speak before you even try to speak to them. I think this is the time when brands actually need to understand what is the fundamentals of content marketing, I think, and try to build that connection. Uh, and I think one of the strategy right now that brands can actually do is talking to customers, like forget business at all. I know it's challenging. I know it's unprecedented because even while I'm saying this, this is not something that we have seen in action.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in 6 months time, we will look at this time in retrospection, and then we can say that these are the things that a brand should be doing. Right now, my personal disposition is you should be talking to customers without any expectation. Just let them come at you, let them talk to you.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that point, Siddharth, about being a lot more vocal, being more connected, which brings me to the next question. There have been some really nice campaigns, communication campaigns that brands have launched, which have, of course, acknowledged the impact of the pandemic. In fact, that's the biggest topic in focus right now. Has there been something interesting which you have come across, which has been rather a glaring change in the way brands communicate today with consumers? If indeed that there is something that you have witnessed, what is that one element that you think has changed in the way brands communicate?
So on the communication side, I think you have to first out go digital. So I was looking at, I think one of the brands in US, they decided to actually run offline ads in summer. And when summer actually started, they didn't anticipate it. So what their agency came up with the idea is, let's make it even more amazing. So let's say there was a creative where they had written why you should buy it, and below that creative they written, we bought this ad only to be seen it by a sweeper and a pigeon. So actually they're making sure that their content actually goes viral online rather than offline. At least someone sees it and posts online. So the point is, you have to be creative at the same time. I think this is one of the best example I saw personally. And other brands which are trying to do that is by educating. I think there was a post by Siemens, I think, uh, and it's an electronics company. It's absolutely exciting to see that brand talking about how you can prevent COVID-19. So one of the first creative that went viral in
Right,
this it was
right,
from Siemens. And
right.
you have to look at it. It's a brand that sells electronic equipments, right? Consumer electronic products. So I think that was one of the amazing example where I think, and I still remember that name. I think I haven't used Siemens product in like years. But
Sure.
the point is, I still have that connection. I still remember the brand's name because it had an impact. So I think
Awesome.
these are the two most exciting examples I saw myself.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm glad that we're talking about the fact that a brand like Siemens has evolved in a massive way with respect to their communication, and they are trying to connect with their consumer, right? Have you witnessed an evolution in the job profiles as well, the traditional job profiles that we know of a CMO or a product manager or a marketing manager? Has COVID-19 affected that?
Personally, I don't think I can comment on that because I haven't seen that. But yeah, I have seen that there are certain roles in the company which are evolving. So let's say there were multiple roles. Again, the auxiliary tasks come in for a person. But I think this time will demand that product managers also come up with the skills of marketing. So I'm actually in touch with one of India's banks, and they are coming up with a very innovative product. I know that this product manager is expected to be, let's say, very good with marketing expert, because he's the one managing even that aspect. So I'm not talking with CMO, I'm not talking with chief digital officer, I'm talking with the product manager. So I think what the time will demand right now is one person with multiple skill set, and preferably marketing is one skill set. I think everyone in the HR team would want their, let's say, product managers or their sales guy to handle it. Very interesting thing happened. I was actually pitching to an ed-tech startup last week, and I was talking to CMO. And suddenly, when I'm talking about social media and advertising to them, their chief sales officer come into the picture as well. So it was very fascinating for me because I was thinking, what does a chief sales officer has to do with this? But the point is, they want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and I think it's a good thing. By the way, a sales and marketing team is collaborating. But essentially, I think in this period, the time will demand that people at least have the marketing skill. I can't say about the other department and division, but I think that is one thing your owners and maybe founders will expect from the team.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd just like to add one point that, as far as marketers are concerned, marketing managers are concerned, I think the biggest focus area right now for most of them is to extract more value out of less, because the traditional marketing budgets and funds have been exhausted. Traditional marketing strategies, of course, are not working anymore. So therefore, it is very, very interesting. I like the fact that you mentioned going digital is so important right now, because it's the only channel that we know is going to get you some kind of demonstrated ROI. And spending money with the right content the right way is definitely a big challenge for marketers right now. Those who haven't really transformed their marketing, probably it's the right time to do so. Awesome. So one more question that I wanted to ask you, Sid, because it's something that is very pertinent to your industry and the work that you do, considering you must be pitching to so many brands. I've noticed the kind of communication from consumer brands that has been hitting us in the past few weeks has evolved massively. Most of the consumer brands that I know, the digital apps that we are all using, are all banking on empathy and education, right? Everybody initially went ahead with the first wave of messages, which was completely humanized, asking us to take care of each other, educating us about using masks and everything. How how important do you think is empathy right now with respect to user engagement and communication? And going forward, do you think it is a theme that is here to stay?
Right. So I think let me give you another example that I was talking to a fellow entrepreneur a week back. So he told me that he simply asked a person in a cold email, not even a cold email, I think he was his customer. So he reached out to that person. He says, I just wanted to understand how the product is working for you and if I can add value. Of course, it sounds a very genuine message, right? But again, the point here is, when as a founder you're going to your customers and talking about your product, I mean that's again I think you are disconnected, you're creating that disconnection, you're not talking in context. And I think even though you try to be, and I think it's a very genuine message, how I can actually improve my product, what's the feedback on this. But the customer actually was furious on the other end. His exact message was, even in these times you are just talking about a product, which actually makes sense. So I think on the communication side, again taking the example of Siemens I just mentioned, I think the empathy part is very difficult to, it's as a concept is very easy to understand, but it's very difficult to execute. What actually entails, or what actually comprises empathy? What should I say to the customer that makes him understand that I am really concerned? And I know that certain brands actually are. We all have to, because we are in this together, right?
Sure, sure, absolutely.
right? So I think this is something that brands will eventually figure out. I think no brand has been able to do it right now. I think we are still trying to make sense of it. There's this example from Big Basket. I think they try to do something innovative on their platform. So when you open their app, the first thing you see is how many orders they have delivered
Right.
till now, how
Set
many
up a
orders they
dashboard.
delivered till last week. So I think that is again a great way to tell or let the customer even empathize with you. Hey, it's not that we are sitting idle, it's that we have so many orders that we are not able to serve you. We did this in the last week, we are doing this much right now. So it's very difficult for us as well. So I think on this side, I think they are communicating really well with the customers.
Brilliant, brilliant. I really like the fact that you mentioned uh, the personal incident that happened, and I completely understand the customers, of course, expect a certain human element in the communication with the brands, and I think that is absolutely critical. Which is why probably Big Basket also reacted, considering they got an immense amount of backlash because of lack of orders. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough time for marketers to try and figure out what is the best message, most definitely. But one thing is for sure, empathy is here to stay, most definitely. Awesome. Uh, so, Siddharth, one very important question that everybody has been trying to figure out, since there is so much of talk about the fact that retention is very, very important right now, because acquisition was always uh, uh, very expensive to do, and paid marketing is not a luxury everybody can afford. So the focus is shifting again to user retention and how you can extract more value from your users. What would constitute a good retention strategy for brands right now?
Mm-hmm. All right. So first of all, I kind of don't agree with this idea initially. I mean, I'll answer your question, the second part. I don't agree that this is the best time for retention, maybe. Because, and again, taking another example, people are not advertising, I know, but this is probably the best time to advertise. My data, like my company's data, suggests that there has been a decrease of 30 to 80% in cost per impression,
Right.
which practically mean if you're spending like on $1 and you were reaching 1,000 people, right now you are reaching 1,300 to 1,800 people, which is fantastic. So I think it's a great time to reach out to new customers. It's actually tap into the referral power of your customer and customer base. But having said that, retention is always important. We all understand that it's SaaS business. The reason Netflix, despite all the heavy budget, I think they are so successful is because of the retention. So I think retention has very little to do with the marketing. I think it comes into the last, as the you can say, uh, customer delight phase,
Mm-hmm.
how your customer success team
Mm-hmm.
and your product itself is delivering value.
Mm-hmm.
And when things go rough, so I used to talk to my partner about this 10 years back. What happens in a recession? I think we had just passed out of I think 2008 recession had just was ebbing, and I was asking what happens. He said you won't even realize what is happening. It just happens at its own pace. So I feel that a lot of people who have to quit using your product, they will do so, right, and without having to actually even think about what is the value. One example I think which resonates with retention is what Shopify is doing right now. So Shopify lets you I think it gives you 14 days free trial for its platform, right? They increased it to 90 days,
Right, right.
which is fantastic. I think I know a lot of companies can't do that
Mm-hmm.
unless you are funded, unless you're sure that you are ready to spend so much to acquire these free users, which may or may not be paying at the end of the stage. But at the same time, this is empathy, I think, in action. And second is it's amazing retention practice, because the churn itself is defined differently for companies to companies. For me, it can be I define churn as someone who leaves my platform in 3 months. For someone, it can be someone leaves platform in 30 days.
Sure.
So I think just by increasing the time frame, they are actually redefining the churn for themselves, and at the same time, they're making sure that someone who's signing up the platform for the first time is getting the best experience out of it.
Awesome, awesome. I'm so glad you mentioned the Shopify example. I think the whole Shopify team has been really proactive, and the way they have handled the whole COVID pandemic, they've created a loyal following of small, medium businesses who are their core TG. And I think definitely, I like the fact that you mentioned empathy in action. I think that is one way to basically put these happy thoughts into practice, is to
True.
basically go out and do those things rather than just talk about it.
True.
Fantastic. Now, one critical question for marketers such as myself, and of course other people who are trying to figure out what to do. What are the top three things that you suggest marketers need to focus on right now?
Absolutely. So in yesterday's webinar, I actually asked the question. I gave my audience 5 different, you can say, marketing activities you should be engaging in. And I asked them, which would you do if you have all the resources with you? So it started with digital advertising, SEO, social media, email marketing, and I think fifth one was content marketing, right? Most of the votes actually came for digital advertising, right? I personally feel that it is the best time to do so, as long as you know what is your objective. You cannot spend on customer acquisition.
Sure.
If you are spending that budget to engage people, if you are spending that budget to maybe send out amazing message to the people, I think that's when you are using your budget very wisely. But I think advertising on platforms, you have to be very subtle what you are using. So just to give you one data point, uh, the the ad spend on native advertising platforms like Outbrain, Taboola, it has dropped by 40 to 70%. And one of the reasons why it's happening is because those platforms has very specific use case. And when you're advertising there, you're not expecting sales all the time. But when you're advertising on, let's say, Google ads, for instance, or search ads, you are expecting a very specific response from the user. So I think as long as you are sure that you what you want to use the platform for, and it delivers that, I think digital advertising is the best thing to do right now. It's the cheapest, and I think it will be the cheapest in the years to come.
Fantastic.
The second activity I think everyone can and should do is content. I think, and by content I don't mean that you need to have a content team that works on it. I think content is something that each and every person in the organization can contribute to, whether it's from a customer success team, whether it's your sales team, whether it's your marketing team, and maybe even product team itself. So we try to do is all the in our company, what we do is we try to gather all the information from everyone and turn it into great pieces of content. I think this is the time when brands can actually collaborate, especially e-commerce, which have nothing to do right now. So you guys can actually go out and maybe collaborate and make some amazing content for your audience. So that is the second activity. The third I would say is stay in touch with your customer. Whether you use WhatsApp for that, whether you use phone numbers, whether you emails, but stay in touch with them. Because in 6 months' time, when things maybe when the wheel starts to move again, I think people will forget you. You want to make sure that they remember you, they remember that you have been in touch with them throughout this time. And I think again, that's empathy in action. You want to understand the problem that they are going through, how as a brand you can assist them.
Fantastic. I completely agree. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Especially the third point. Things might improve and brands might forget you, but that personal connect people will always remember. Absolutely. Now, if I could ask you one question, of course, coming back to my favorite topic, which is about engaging with users right now. And I get so many messages. I'm sure you must be getting all of these different promotions, and some of them are really nice campaigns as well. For brands who are trying to do exactly that, remain in touch with their customers, even though their core business has suffered, they are all trying to find a sweet spot and understand what is it that they can do that will really impress or wow their customers, even though they cannot fulfill all their promises. What is that one thing, or what is the best user engagement strategy for a brand right now, according to you?
I think it's education, and it can be around anything. So one example would be SCM Rush. Again, it's from marketing industry, so I'm giving example from mine. But the first thing that they did when the lockdown started was they completely opened their courses which were paid for everyone for I think 1 month or so. So I think that is one of the best things that you can do. And I think a lot of brands have actually tried that. Udacity, Coursera, they have made all their courses free.
Right.
I think that is one of the best way. And I think as a consumer sentiment, I'm personally realizing is everyone is taking this time as an opportunity to learn. Of course, it's a great time to be with your family, but at the same time, when you're not working, there's something that you need to do. All those hours you spend traveling, you need to invest somewhere, and people feel this need to actually educate or re-educate themselves. And I think brands can fill that gap by coming into the picture and say, hey, I have something amazing to offer you free of cost. And it's even better when that course is actually paid, because it makes sense for the customer that this is something that they couldn't get maybe after 3 or 6 months time. So I think that is one of the best user engagement strategy. The second would be by engaging them in activities. So I think I'm part of a growth folks community. I had their Mumbai chapter, I think I told you. So we did a webinar with Chief Growth Officer of SCM Rush 2 weeks back. And one thing that we did after the event is when the speaker was gone, we let every single user at the platform stay. So it's a community, so we wanted everyone to introduce themselves. And now they are engaging at different touch points. They're engaging in our WhatsApp groups, they're engaging in Facebook groups.
Wow.
And we are even trying to come up with different strategies. So for instance, one of the things at Basil and even at Growth Folks we are doing is we are opening our platform for guest blogging. So while you want to educate, there are always something that you, as an audience or as a user, you want to share with people. So we have made our platform open, and we are allowing people to actually fill their time by writing for us.
Superb. I'm so glad you mentioned that last point. I think I completely agree with the fact that this is the best time right now to educate, and I think content has the power to reach so many different people at the same time. Fantastic. This brings me to the last question of today's Siddharth, and this is one of my personal favorites because I'm a bit of a sci-fi nerd. So all of these little things make me very excited, and we are all working from home, right? As we know it, the whole world, in fact, is in it together. Everybody is working from home, and it's kind of a strange feeling because it's never happened before, right? A lot of people have some apprehensions. A lot of people have been enjoying it as well. Do you think that we are heading towards a work from home future?
I mean, there's no escaping it. That's the best way to go forward. I mean, even if that is not happening, my personal predisposition is that is what we should aim and try to achieve. And for multiple reasons, not just the economic aspect of it. There is certainly a great economic advantage of doing that.
Sure.
So number one, I think you must have heard the news. TCS made that 75% of its employees will be working from home till 25.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is happening is you're saving cost of infrastructure cost, you're saving cost on electricity or the rent, the real estate cost you're saving there. Then the office resources. Of course, there are disadvantages. I won't go into that. But I think as a society, we need to reinvent this. That what are the advantages from working from home? You're not going outside on one car filling up that should be taking at least 4 people just driving into your office. I think that is one of the reasons we talk about pollution all day.
Totally.
We are the one creating it. So I think it's need of the hour. And one thing that will actually assist this is we will also learn to collaborate more.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest challenges while working from home is how you collaborate and communicate with everyone in your team. I think that is one challenge there will be, but it is the best way to move forward. I think I'm a big fan of all those companies who actually who have very remote teams and they're still make amazing products. Basecamp is one of the great examples. It's like $100 million company and left a team of like 50 or 100 people, and they all work remotely across at least I think 5 continents. So it's a great example, I think, Basecamp. And even right now, I think there is no problem. Many companies are not facing it, but as even in Basel, I would say that we are not facing any problem by working remotely. The only thing that we face issue is with communication, and we ensure that when we were doing just one, let's do two in a week, maybe a Monday and a Friday, just to make sure we are catching up on our daily tasks and our deadlines.
I completely agree. Over communicate. That is what we have been told to do right now. Over communicate. It's completely
Nice.
fine, but do that. Super duper. Thank you so much, Siddharth. That brings us to the end of this fantastic conversation. I learned so much from you. I'm so glad you shared a few of those examples. I think we are going to have a very nice session. Thank you once again for doing this.
Thanks, Prem. It was amazing from my side as well.